Hello, people. Uh, I wanted to just do a quick live stream, so that's what we are doing. I don't know if this is actually going to be quick, but that's the nature of these things. It's pretty much an adventure for me every time. And this time I have a whole sketch, as you can see here, and this really is the sketch. I'm just gonna quickly check if the microphone is on. If there is anybody hearing me, let me know if the sound is okay. We are gonna start painting, and I don't know what brush I'm going to use. Honestly, I don't even have a palette. I was just like mixing colors on canvas like this, and I thought that this could be the palette for the whole thing. Microphone is on. Okay. I'm probably going to save the palette into a more useful format, but this is just a glimpse on showing how my palette like progress usually comes together, that I just mix them on canvas, and then in the end it turns into a palette that I turn into swatches. But in the beginning it honestly just looks like this kind of a random mess of blobs, and I try to order them into kind of materials, like elements that I thought that could just be connected somehow. Like for example, here we have green elements next to some kind of dark tones where the contrast is higher, and then another area where the same colors are done with a lower contrast. This is just that color separation that I was talking about in my color tutorial that I released some time ago on this channel, and I use that same logic in all of my palettes basically. So if you don't want to use my palettes and you want to use your own, that's how you do it. This is a non-driving live stream, like all of the live streams. So the topic of this thing will be this circle. I just thought that after just doing a circle, that how can I find your membership? The membership is on this channel, on this YouTube. It's here. So I don't know if the membership button is visible on mobile yet, but at least on a desktop, the join button is next to every single YouTube video, just like the subscribe button is, but it just says join. And there you will find links to the Discord access and all of the downloads. The download folders change every month or so, and there are different downloads, including palettes, high-resolution paintings, and then you also get an access to literally like tons and tons of video tutorials, art assignments, all kinds of art lectures on environment, concept art, just basic composition and how to paint, all of the technical tutorials, everything like that. And also all of the sequential tutorials. Sorry, there's a train going by. All of the sequential tutorials I also put on the membership, because sequential videos would not work in the YouTube algorithm otherwise. For example, if there is information that is stacking on some other information, like there often and almost always is in art education, then you need to learn part 1 before learning the second part. So that's why I think membership is really good. way to do those videos, because I don't need to keep kind of like selling the idea that like this is what these videos are about, and I don't need to design the entire lesson material around creating an enticing thumbnail. Because people already pay for it, I don't need to kind of like keep selling it in the idea, and that doesn't have to affect the content that I'm making. I don't know if this all makes sense for like non-YouTubers, but it really does free me into creating completely different kind of stuff that I would otherwise be able to. Thank you for the shout out from Japan. Hope things are good in there. I heard that in Japan they already pre-ordered 2.2 million Nintendo Switches. And despite Nintendo swearing up and down that like we have this whole system covered this time around, that we definitely are gonna make enough systems so that we don't have any shortage problems at launch. And then right away, there's an apology for not having made enough Nintendo Switches. Honestly, I think that is pretty exciting, because personally, I want Nintendo to succeed. I want the Switch to be a success. I think having a handheld gaming device is pretty much like, for me, the optimal way to play games. And there's also a hidden reason, which is harder to explain, and that is that handheld devices, they inherently, like, you cannot stick a PlayStation 5. You can't even stick PlayStation 4 into a handheld device yet properly. So you have to have budget. You have to kind of like design the entire project differently for those devices. So you have to have an interesting art style. You can't just do the most photorealistic thing and expect that to be enough to sell the game. And I think that's how you end up with just like more interesting games in general. And I know that like all of that stuff could be done on more expensive devices. It's just, there's a different kind of gaming culture there. And I think Nintendo has been doing a great job on the Switch to support indies and really just like highlight the stuff that indies make, so that it's not just about these like mega corporations making games and there is just space for creativity and interesting games. Hey, what are you painting? I'm doing a ring. Thanks for asking. Now that that is cleared, we can continue with the painting. I don't know. I just thought that it would be an interesting challenge to turn this into something interesting. I don't know what that interesting is, but I will probably know it when I get there. That's how art often works, and that's my favorite thing about art, is that you get to discover it in the process. I think that's always super fun. There's also for joining the channel, there's also a join link in most of my video descriptions. But honestly, I haven't tried that on a mobile device that is not linked to my YouTube account. So I don't know if that works, but it should take you to the joining page as well. The membership join button is also a link on my channel main page. but on the desktop I know that it's on every single video. It's a button next to every single video, just like the subscribe button. I don't know what these lumps are. I think some kind of a cliff in the foreground could be cool. Kind of lead us into this space. You can almost imagine that we are here. And seeing whatever this is. I thought it might be a portal to a different world. Yep, that's one good guess. I mean, I don't know what this is yet, so I'm just as interested in figuring that out as you are. And I know that this might be frustrating for some, but it's just the way that my art works. Sorry, if you're looking for quick answers, you will not find it in these live streams. You will find a lot of searching and visual problem solving, and sometimes me just painting silently when I'm trying to figure out those things, because sometimes I need to kind of like shut down my brain and everything else to just find whatever it is that I am looking for in the painting. And sometimes that does take quite a bit of time. But I think these are a good balance to the edited videos, where the entire process seems to go by in just a few minutes. I always thought that kind of like the bigger purpose of these live streams is also to just show the work process, so that it's not just a few minutes on the iPad and then I have a painting, but there is actual work that needs to be done. Like the bigger purpose of this live stream. Sorry. But at least I know that the audio works now. I need to put away the Wi-Fi on my phone so that I don't log it up. Look, right now it looks like a tire on an island. Yes? Maybe this is a tire island. Maybe that's the answer. It could be the answer. I'm sure there's also an interesting way to do a tire island. Also, if anybody out there feels like, you should have done this or this instead, you are absolutely welcome to take that idea that came to you and turn it into a painting. I am not stopping you, and I'm not even least bit worried if you are inspired by what you see here. It's still your idea. If I have served as a trigger for that idea, then so be it. I think that's only a good thing. Just don't drive and we'll be fine. By the way, this brush is box juice, and this is one of those brushes that was previously in the membership downloads. since I am apparently using it for this painting, I can put it in the current downloads after this stream. There is also a high resolution painting that I just finished and posted on Instagram, and there are both of the brushes from previous download set as well, because I worked on those for so long that I really don't want them to throw them away in any way. This ring that I have made for myself, like this is basically, as I'm like doodling these different colors, the ring shape is just a reminder that this is the light hue, that this is what light color looks like in this painting. That's one way to differentiate that swatch from everything else before I do a swatch in Procreate where I do full palette where I check that the saturation isn't too high and so on, so that other people can benefit from the same palette as well. But when I have those sort of markings that like all of the colors are grouped together, nice and tight bundles, then it's easier to sort out on the palette where everything goes. Currently trying to paint a still life for my dad, but as usual, when I'm supposed to or forced to do something, I struggle with it. Maybe you can cheat yourself into starting. Maybe while this live stream is going on, maybe you can just do a little bit of sketching. It doesn't have to be good sketching. It doesn't have to be even okay sketching. It can be bad sketching for that thing that you are doing. And then at least you will have something to improve on. Just try to lower the bar for starting to as low time effort or as low quality effort as you possibly can. And the only way to get going is to start, and that way you can build that momentum to going somewhere. But if you don't start, then you will never get to that part where you are building actual momentum to doing things. I'm gonna start from my darkest swatches in these color bundles and then work my way towards lighter colors. Like the idea of breaking these shapes into different values and just playing with that checkerboarding effect in different ways. Looks like Stargate. That's funny. I went to see Stargate, the movie, when I was a kid. And I did find it like strangely appealing. I guess it's because strange cultures always fascinate me. And combining different cultures, I find that combination always interesting. And also combining different like eras of technology and development in fantasy, I think that's way more interesting than science fiction or fantasy. I think that if you have to bottle up even your imagination into categories like that, you have kind of like fundamentally failed before you even start to come up with interesting ideas. That's whenever I start imagining new worlds or places, I don't think that is this fantasy or is this science fiction. Like those terms mean absolutely nothing to me, and I definitely don't want to put those sort of burdens on my creative thinking at all when I'm working. I'm gonna introduce a little bit of view variety to these screens. It's very hard to get those sort of like small nuances, so that's why I'm mixing it on the canvas. The cool thing about this box juice brush is that it's super fun for blending colors on canvas. Can you see that I'm now tilting the stylus sideways, and that is mixing the colors like this. A lot of my brushes have this same feature, and that's why I find it so easy to just paint with one brush for the whole painting instead of switching between different ones, because I have basically control for all of the colors with the same tool, and that just makes progress a lot faster. And to me, it's a lot more rewarding to explore ideas that way, that I can try different things, and if they fail, I can just scrap it and try something new. But I don't have to go into brush settings or different tools and think about like what brush am I now going to use for this thing, because then you have to already have decided on what you're doing, and it's really hard to do like interesting design work that way when your kind of like flow state from painting is kind of constantly being severed by that technical tool selection process. And if I can just translate everything that I am thinking directly into mark making on canvas, that way I can go through a lot more ideas. That doesn't mean that my ideas are any better than anybody else's. I have just gotten like really quick at trying things like without thinking that it needs to work or it needs to be pretty, because the process, because of these tools and the way that I am kind of like doing everything in such a quick way, because of that process, I can go through a lot of like failed ideas. And once you go through 50 bad ideas, then you are bound, or at least more likely, to end up with something that is actually good, that you want to keep. So it's just a numbers game, really. That's what I did in yesterday's character design workshop that we had on this channel. We went through like different silhouettes for a character that I was designing, and I went through like just dozens of different options before ending up with one where I did color blocking and color block design on. And I had no idea what that final shape would be in the beginning of that stream, but I had so many options after the first hour that it wasn't difficult to choose something that I felt like somewhat confident that this could turn into something that I actually like. I love how you're letting the painting guide the piece. It's a journey, not the destination sort of thing. Yeah, but it's also kind of the destination. I see what you mean, and I do agree with that. But I think you would be surprised by just like how deeply personal paintings can be when you kind of just discover them in the process. So I often notice that when I'm not trying to make a point or a story, then I end up with like even more story because I'm not trying to force or dress it up into some certain specific meaning. And then kind of these sort of like hidden subconscious thoughts much more easily creep into the final end product. And those paintings end up being like way more personal and symbolic and powerful just because I wasn't trying to control the situation. It's not like they turn into something random. Everything that is being put on your canvas, that comes from your brain in some way. So at some point during the day or during your week or lifetime even, that thing happened to you, or something happened to you that made you think about those things in that way. And then once you can kind of like ease into this more relaxed way of painting, then it's pretty easy to end up with those paintings that just describe you in some way that you didn't even notice that you have those feelings. I really like the dramatic sky, Evan is saying. I like dramatic skies as well. I think the blue was kind of bland, so I'm kind of painting that away a little bit. And I noticed that just doing a box for the sea horizon is much better than constantly battling with is it straight or not. Because that's the kind of time that really doesn't translate into any better paintings. That's not a design decision to ponder. Should I increase the canvas size a little bit? You'd be surprised just how often I see people complaining that like their artwork ends up being blurry because they are painting on a too small of a canvas. It's not like a Procreate or any application problem, it's just how resolution works. And you can simply avoid that by having big enough canvas. There's no bigger lesson there to be learned. Some things are just so easy that they're boring to talk about. I see the live stream on my phone on a smaller screen, so that helps me kind of like see the painting that I see in front of me, in front of myself, in a much smaller scale. So if you're wondering why I'm looking over there, it's because this live stream is playing there, and I can see this painting as this like tiny thumbnail. That's why I don't feel the need to like zoom out as much, because I know that kind of constant zooming in and out, that must be very frustrating for you guys to watch when you don't have the same kind of level of understanding what's happening in this painting. I don't have a lot of understanding either at this point. I'm just trying to figure it out as I go. I like the idea if your color palette is also your idea. Um, honestly, nobody owns colors, so like you can just take a screenshot and use these. I will put them into a usable palette and I will put that in the downloads folder after I am done. But colors are colors. I think palettes are really handy way of just like getting the creative painting mode started, because sometimes at least I don't have an idea of what I'm painting and I'm just like feeling out different moods by mixing colors like this on the canvas, and that can turn into an idea later. Or like in this case, it didn't turn into any idea, but it turned into a desire to start painting, and sometimes that's enough. Kind of like I said earlier about different ways of like cheating yourself to start working. I'm already doing the actions that are very much similar to what painting is like. Then at some point I'm like, I might as well do a painting and just get it over with, because I'm already thinking about all of the creative possibilities of what I could do with what I have here. Alania is saying, I'm an oil painter new to Procreate, similar to when I started oil painting. How do you avoid making muddy colors when blending? Thank you. Well, you need to be aware of what your local colors are, what your light color is, and because you know how to mix light colors, because you know what your light color is, don't mix the light color on the other side of the local color with the shadows. That's it. That ends up with muddy colors. There's nothing more mysterious about that. That's also how I have organized all of these swatches and the way that I mix them. I don't jump the local color when I am mixing the colors together. You can mix the local color and the light color, you can mix the local color and the shadow color, but you cannot mix the lightened version and the shadow version between each other. That's how you end up with muddy colors. And if you have a muddy looking area in your painting, chances are that that color separation isn't there. So it's not even that difficult of a thing to fix. You usually just have to repaint the area and keep the logic there without breaking it. I like the kind of rusty look of the ring so far. But I think it would be fun to break it up with some small details. Could you show an example of pen blending? I don't get how you pick a color between two colors. Sure, I can show how I did one of the swatches, for example. So let's say that here I have this blue intense color, but I also want there to be a little bit of like a greenish tone here in the horizon to have a little bit of gradient in the sky. So I'm gonna do that on top of everything so you can see what I'm actually doing. So I'm just doing this swatch of color. And then I wanna mix it into a lighter version. So I know that this is my light color. So I'm gonna go towards that a little bit, just finding some kind of desaturated version. I think I could go even more desaturated. And instead of like holding the pencil directly against the glass, I'm holding it a little bit sideways to get these sort of blending effects happening. And now I'm mixing the color in between where those colors are blending together. And that way I'm ending up with this color that I can use for the sky to mix this lighter element. This is now the color that I ended up with after this mixing process. And I can just take that color blob and put it in the horizon. This is a cheap way to do it. I love doing things the cheap way. Now there's just not like one flat color in the background, and it just keeps the eye moving throughout the picture plane. Ideally, you always want the eye to be moving into some direction. Preferably towards your subject. I'm sorry, the neighborhood is on fire. It's not my fault. I didn't set it on fire myself, as far as I know. Evan is saying, I might also just be doing the wrong thing. I'm an illustrator, not a painter, and yet I try to paint realism. I really like the dramatic sky. You can be both. You don't have to choose. Sorry, I've been wearing 2 headphones the entire time. You don't have to choose between being a painter and an illustrator. You can easily be both. There are plenty of illustrators that are good at painting as well. Learning to paint takes a long time, but it's not like endless amount of time. You can learn it if you put in the effort, and you can learn multiple different styles. Especially if you're already good at doing illustration stuff. At some point, you're gonna want to have new ways to express yourself. Some ideas are going to be easier to express by painting. Some ideas are going to be more powerful if you use your illustration storytelling techniques to tell them. I've done plenty of projects also where both skills are required. So it's not black and white. Sorry for the noises, my boyfriend is playing with my dog. I'm gonna clean up this ring a little bit because it's bothering me that it's so... whoa, not a ring. Okay, now it's starting to look like a ring, and now it's much easier to lock the layer and so on. I can also use that same edge to find where that other end is here. Actually, it looks pretty okay already. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Just going to add a little bit of like directional brush strokes to suggest volume. And lowering them in opacity as they are only for texture. A quick way to enhance textures like these are just to make a different version, change the hue a little bit, mask it, turn the mask into black, set it as a clipping mask, and then go on the mask layer and then with white paint do some blotches to bring out that other layer a little bit. And that way you will just have a whole lot more texture while keeping the same style with the original look of the layer underneath. Now I'm just gonna crop this and do that again. Clipping mask. And this time I'm gonna turn it more to a warmer tone. It's a little bit lighter. Mask, invert, and then again the same thing. And if you ever feel like you're getting too crazy with the textures, that it's turning into kind of like a cow pattern, then you can always do a duplicate layer of these elements that you have, set it as a clipping mask, and then set it to luminosity, and apply a blur on it. And then just set it on a very low opacity. And this just brings down that craziness a little bit while keeping that texture in there. I wanna bounce the light from the ground because I have that sort of like sandstone underneath. I wanna have that light bounce up a little bit on this surface. I'm gonna put that into screen and then just make it super saturated and dark. I think that's interesting. Sometimes you don't really quite know where it's going, so again, it's important to keep the momentum and not get too stuck on minor details that might not even be that important. It can be tempting to add this kind of like very tiny foliage detail everywhere, but with restraint, you can just confine that kind of scumbling into areas where it matters, or you get the most kind of like caught attention in the areas where you want to trap that attention for the effort that you are putting in. How do you switch the illustration mode into painter's mode? That's what I find difficult. I think just selecting different tools for me can make that change, or just understanding the tone of what I'm conveying. If I can understand the reason why a certain tool would fit the project better, then it's easier to also make that mental switch into illustration or painting mode. Basically, understand what you are saying, and then it's easy to just like follow that idea, because it's gonna be more natural to make those decisions about should this be a painting or an illustration when you know what the intent is. But it's like kind of like doing that deep dive into what your creativity wants. It can always be kind of tricky and difficult, because so often there are some like really hard questions that need to be answered when you kind of want to figure out what your painting is really about. In the previous live stream, we talked a lot about how to know when your painting is finished, and I think that has the same answer. That once you know what your painting is saying, then it's much easier to evaluate, like, is that message coming through in your painting? And then you can just clearly have this sort of like A/B questions for yourself, like, am I conveying this message through this painting? That's a yes or no question. And then those sort of questions become a lot easier to answer. Whoa. I'm gonna read a few of the questions. How are you today? I wish I could have got from this from the beginning. Yeah. Well, you're here now. What was the inspiration for this one? Are you doing the alphabet? No, I'm not doing the alphabet. I was just doing like random doodling, and then I just did this ring shape on the screen. I want to show this is the actual sketch for this piece, and when I had the ring in there, I thought that like this could be an interesting design challenge to have a very kind of like eye-catching element in the middle of the illustration, because circle shapes are one of those elements that kind of get the attention. And I thought it would be fun to turn that into a painting. And I didn't know what that would be, but now that I've been making this, somebody said Stargate, and like I think there is some kind of like a magical element to this, but I think my gut feeling for this whole thing, what I feel like is happening here, is that there's some kind of almost like a sundial type of thing that is here. And I don't quite know how it works, but these sort of like small beams that we have here, I think there's something clock-like about that feels like mysterious and interesting to me, and the dramatic sky kind of implies that we have reached some sort of like very rare moment when something special happens here on this island, where we can see something that most people will never get to see. Almost like this clock has been here for ages for some special moment. I think it's almost like the entire sky is kind of like twisting around that thing as well. Sugarcane is asking, I love your style and the subjects you choose. How would you paint something less charismatic in your style, like an earthworm underground? More browns and pinks instead of blues and greens. Earthworm. I think the worm texture is interesting. I have done like concept artwork on one game where there was this sort of like infested growth on the walls, and that texture was very much inspired by earthworms. I wasn't trying to make it likable, I was trying to make it like very gross. So I don't know if that's answering your question. I guess what I'm trying to battle with here is that like it's not a bad thing that a painting has like some kind of like a gross subject. You can find visual appeal in anything. I think the biggest problem that we have in digital painting right now is that it's so just focused on beauty, and I know that I'm not the person to do this rant. There's somebody who can walk the walk, but I think making a painting look beautiful is so overrated and so low on my list of priorities when I'm painting that it doesn't even just, I don't care about that basically. Whatever is telling that message in the most honest, clear way possible, that's what I want. think when you're less occupied by how beautiful something is or if people will like it, then you have a much higher chance of making something that people actually like, because then you are focused on like real thoughts and feelings that you care about, and you're a person just like everybody else. There's somebody out there who finds those subjects and topics important or interesting. And there's a whole lot of terrible things about the way that algorithms guide our behavior, but the one beautiful thing about the algorithms is that you can very easily connect with like-minded people, and you can use that not just for evil like most people do, but you can use that for good as well. And I think that has been the kind of main reason why this entire YouTube channel exists. There be something watching this event unfold, like a cat. Maybe a different pose could be fun. Let's do options. I think that's a little bit more interesting. It's like a hissing cat when this strange thing is happening. Definitely not doing this, but it would be fun if there was another one, just kind of like chilling, not as worried. I hate it when I do dumb things like this by accident, because like then I'm so compelled to leave it. It's that kind of what is it, like the chaotic side of me that is just completely in charge, and as soon as like that thought occurs in my head, I already know that I have lost the fight and it's gonna win and do something terrible. my dog is very cat-like. The picture that you saw accidentally of me earlier is like me washing my dog's food container, and even though it contains all of the kibbles, which makes it like the most beautiful thing ever for my dog, she feels like really scared of these big noises that things make. Especially if those noises come somewhere from above, then she always runs away, just like a cat. Because that's the way that small corgis survive, is by not being there where something from above is falling. And even if there's like a tiny noise, it means that like something might be falling from the sky and they need to be running immediately. Like for example, whenever I reach for the clothes hanger to pick up my coat when we are going out for a walk, whenever she hears that click of the coat hanger, she's gone. Because the coat hanger might drop. It happens like once every 200 times, but it still might happen, and that's why she bolts away. The problem when you have a palette like this, when you're working with it, it's just like get rid of it as soon as you can. I said in the beginning of this live stream that I am going to be making swatches and turning it into a normal palette. I'm just gonna do it after this stream. There's no reason to expose you to the tedium of that, and for the members I will make sure that that palette is downloadable, and it's gonna follow the same logic like all of my palettes, that the top left corner is always the hue of the light source, and that's how all of the other colors are mixed. So you know when you want to add different local colors, then you already have a guide on how to do those. And there are those 2 color mixing tutorials that anybody can do. There's the color mixing exercise, Master Your Palette, that I recommend. I noticed that there's a new member, Silvinka82. If you haven't done Master Your Palette exercise yet, then absolutely do that. And then there is the more advanced version, the color obstacle course, which I absolutely recommend doing after that. You can see all the playlists to the different art assignments on the announcement channel on Discord in the pinned comment. I'm just scumbling some cloud shapes. There's also a really cool brush for painting clouds on my Gumroad that is absolutely free. You can download it on the Gumroad, and it's called Cloud Weaver Brush. There are also tons of very specific cloud painting process in my art course that is also on Gumroad. those things which you call dumb are the details about that brings the story of a painting together, in my opinion. Silvinka is saying, yeah, I think it's... I've come to terms with the fact that a lot of my paintings have kind of inherently silly things in them. And that's just the person that I am. I'm not that serious of a person, I guess. And sometimes it's easier to talk about serious issues when there's a little bit of, or a lot of silly shared with it. I think that way, I talk a lot about like climate and the environment in my paintings, and I think the silliness helps it a bit from like feeling too preachy. I mean, like, we all know these things kind of already, but do we feel them? How are we gonna like feel connection to these issues if we don't form an emotional connection to the results? And I think that's where silly can be useful, can be a way for us to feel like these things that happen all around the world, like all of those things affect us, specifically us as people. It's also fun to just paint something random for once. We've been doing this art assignment about world building in multiple different sessions on membership side, and it's the one project that encompasses multiple different paintings and artworks. So it's fun to just do something like random that doesn't come with that sort of like same design considerations. Design is fun, but it is designing specifically with limitations in mind. If you do just a painting or illustration, it's not really designed before you are solving some kind of a problem. Like, how do we tell this story while keeping true to these design principles that we have decided with the art direction? Or how do we convey this gameplay feature by using this amount of space but not using blue color at all, because we need that for communicating something else? Then it's design. But if it's just a painting, there's nothing wrong with that. But to do design work and to get better at design work, you do need to work with limitations, even if you come up with those limitations on your own, that still develops your problem-solving skills. At any point, if you feel like adding light to your scene, you can do a gradient like this and then just set that in overlay blend mode. But for this to work, you actually need to have colors that kind of allow for that kind of push. I'm doing this for a very low saturation element with a very low saturation light element on top of it. And the fact that it doesn't have a lot of saturation inherently already, that makes this light effect work. I'm just gonna like find a place where it fits and where I could get the kind of most out of that placement here, where the light effect is hitting the edge of a dark cloud and the other edge on the left side. So this is what that does, that layer. And you can do that same thing for multiple elements. I'm just gonna add a little bit more Gaussian blur to this. Now I have this light. I'm just gonna like mold it into a shape that fits my needs here. Place it somewhere around here. Duplicate it. Set it as a clipping mask for that foreground element. Just scrunching up that light into a tiny ball over here. Then giving it a Gaussian blur, kind of like molding the shape. Now I have that peak saturation only in one corner of the island, closest to the camera, and that's exactly where we want that attention to go. It's almost like the other cat is saying like, dude, come back from there. We really should go home. It's our food time and we shouldn't be doing dark magic out here at this hour. It's not safe. I just wanna go home already. How has your month been so far? Have you gotten any painting done? I think this is typically the point in the year where most people fall into that kind of slump where it's hard to keep up with your goals and life just gets really busy. And there's nothing wrong with taking a break every now and then just return to art when you feel more energized. You have to have a little bit of life to paint about. So, hey Selina. I'm gonna do that same light effect thing for my island. I'm gonna duplicate that light, bring it down on the island layer, set it as a clipping mask, and then crunch it into an area where I think it fits. I have a weird idea that I don't know if it's gonna work, but I feel like it's worth trying. Kind of obscure the view so that we don't quite know what's happening there in the distance. This just adds a little bit of hue variety to the sea. So I want the sea to kind of look turbulent, and you can see all different kinds of angles of these waves simultaneously. And rather than just focus on like the photorealistic depiction of different waves, I think you can get that same effect also by thinking about how eye moves when you're looking at chaotic sea, and just like having that feeling that you can't quite focus on any single part properly at all. So it's kind of all happening all at once. Hi Mikko, I'm trying to achieve realistic oil painting look in a piece. Any brush recommendations? Deep canvas brush is a good brush, honestly. Any brush where you can mix the color simultaneously. Bear, blueberry, both of those are good for doing those mixes on canvas. Snow also. And for all of those brush recommendations, to get the most out of this sort of mixing logic, do the painting on as few layers as possible, on a single layer if you can. Because that way you will get a lot of those cool mixes happening in your painting. I'm just scumbling this sea foam texture in place here. I'm gonna work a little bit with gradients to just carve out all the details that I need to be visible. Okay, I think the masses are kind of slowly starting to form and create that kind of like magical tension that I was looking for here. I'm gonna add a little bit of like a higher contrast, grittier texture details here, so that it's not all smooth. Can you see any of that detail? It does add a little bit of like grit to it. How much time do you take to paint one painting? I'm just saying that since you probably didn't see that there was no drawing for this, there was just painting. Well, for this it has been about 2 hours, and I think we're about done here. I'm gonna do a round of details, and I think that's gonna be about another 2 hours, and then the painting is done. But when I'm doing like additional details, it's not gonna fundamentally change the look of the composition in any way, so that is pretty much already done here. I could add some like sparkles for the sea, just because that's fun. I'm probably also going to kind of like twist the clouds a little bit with warp tools. I could show how that works. I have this cloud, I'm just making it kind of bend to the composition a little bit more to follow that almost like explosion happening in this piece. It's a small nudge, but it just makes everything go towards that center a little bit more. Same with these. These are the kind of details that I work after the stream is done. And it's just kind of, at this point, I know what the painting is about, and I'm just pushing everything more towards that portal and this moment that is kind of forming around that this brave cat is approaching. How to keep all those different blend modes from interfering with one another when you merge the layers? Well, I always merge the layers as quickly as possible, and for example, if I have a different blend mode, for example, let's find somewhere where this is happening. So for example, here I have this screen blend mode, and I want to merge it with the layers below. So I am duplicating that layer, setting it as a clipping mask over that ring. I am dropping it there. Now I'm detaching this ring layer here. So I wanna also merge this as a clipping mask first, and then I merge that. And now I've got rid of that screen layer. So it always needs to be merged with a clipping mask first, and then you can never just drop down a screen layer on top of a normal blend mode layer. That's one way to ruin your entire painting very quickly. I feel like I should have like few brighter green leaves up here. Just a few. I think it just needs that for balance. Thank you, Lala. Okay. I really should go and do some running next. I've been sitting here working on my next video all day, and tomorrow I will start my day by taking Vivi to her daycare. Before I go on a trip. I think there's something about this part here that I don't quite like, so I'm just gonna nudge this entire area into much smaller space. I think it still does that kind of like pointing towards the focal point, but not stealing all of the attention. Okay. I'm kind of stuck with this painting process and I don't know when to quit, so I'm just gonna quit now. And from this point onwards, it's just gonna be details. Thank you, Dave, Winston, Sense, Rudark, Selina, and everybody who joined the stream. It was nice painting with you guys this one last time. And I will see you when I return again. I'm gonna keep working on videos. I think the next one might... I don't know when that's gonna be finished, because I probably won't be able to finish it tomorrow. So I will finish it after I return. But thanks everybody for joining, and I'm looking forward to our final Night World video that we are going to be doing, and that's going to be on world building, and then we're going to take this character design, the game world that we've been designing, and everything that we have learned about painting night scenes, and then just combining those into one final art learning session. And that is going to conclude the entire Night World project, and it has been like super fun to work on that with you guys, and I can't wait to share my island that I've been working on. It has been such a cool place to figure out all the detail and the culture of that place. So that entire Night World and all of those streams, they are permanently in the membership library, so they are not gonna be like time limited in any way, so you can see them whenever you want. And if you're doing the art assignments with me, like those you can do at any pace. You don't have to do them in real time with me, and you can do them whenever you feel like that information would be helpful to you. Again, thank you for joining this stream, and I'll see you guys in